Me fui para aprender pensamiento crítico sin ti.
¿Por qué? Hey there, I'm Dr. Zachariah Renfro, and in today's video we're going to learn a little bit about critical thinking. Now let me tell you, critical thinking is a lot more complicated of a subject than what you might imagine. It's careful thinking that's directed towards a goal, and I know that definition might seem a little odd to you, but when I was researching about critical thinking to try and find out the most precise way to describe it, I found out that not only are there a lot of conflicting definitions, but the topic itself is actually hugely controversial within the world of philosophy. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy has a huge 6,000 word article just on critical thinking and the different theories of education and how they believe that critical thinking can help us or harm us in our learning process. So let's go through a more precise definition. Critical thinking is done for a purpose, it follows standards, and it exercises said standards to a degree. What does that mean? It means that when you're thinking critically, you have to be wanting to think critically. It's not just something that comes out of the blue. It's a process. You start this process of critical thinking and then you work through it, right? Additionally, you can't think critically about something that you yourself don't understand. So, for example, I'm a big fan of Pokemon. I like the cards, like the games, watch the show, right? So I could probably think pretty critically about Pokemon, but I don't know a whole lot about ice hockey, right? It would be really hard for me to think critically about ice hockey because I have no understanding of it. So these lectures and the stuff you'll be learning in this class should help you develop the research skills to be able to become an expert on multiple subjects so that you can think critically about subjects even if you aren't already an expert on them. So, for example, nuclear power, euthanasia, the death penalty, right? You may not be an expert on these things, but hopefully, with the research skills that you're going to learn, you will be able to get enough knowledge to start to think critically about different subjects. You'll also learn tools of rhetoric and logic. Rhetoric being speaking, logic being thinking, ordered arguments, right? You'll learn these tools to help you build strong arguments, find weak arguments, string together logical arguments, and pick apart illogical arguments. Let's kind of go through some of these tools of arguments, right? First, we've got persuasion, right? And this is when you're trying to convince someone, and it can be argumentative or non-argumentative. What does that mean? Argumentative means that it has reasons, right? I know that in our common life we hear the word argument and we think, oh, that's a bad word. Someone's getting fired up, someone's having problems. No, what it means in this sense is that it just has reasons, right? It has things that back it up. I like cats because they have hair, right? That's the reason behind the argument, right? A non-argumentative form of persuasion would be like your child running up to you and saying, I want ice cream, I want ice cream, I want ice cream, right? There's no argument, there's no reason. But if your child came up to you and said, I want ice cream because it's full of vitamin C and it has a sugary sweet taste, then they provided reason, right? The next thing that we need to make clear is arguments. So that's persuading with reason, but explanations can sound a lot like arguments, right? For example, if I explain that the sun is powered by nuclear fusion, a person hearing that, maybe from a distance, might think that it's an argument. They might think, oh, he's trying to make the point that the sun is powered with nuclear fusion, when in fact I'm just making an explanation, right? I'm not trying to persuade, I'm just trying to explain. Arguments contain a set of premises and a conclusion. So how can we tell what a conclusion is? A conclusion will have words like so, therefore, hence, thus. It's raining, so when I walk outside, I'm going to get wet. My cat likes steak, So when I give it steak, it will eat steak, right? The premise is the part that comes before, the conclusion comes after. Sometimes, but not always, right? Sometimes someone might have it backwards. I'm wet because it was raining, which leads us to the next part, which is premise indicators. You get words like because, establishes, shows, implies. The water on the ground implies that it was raining. The sun in the sky implies that it's a sunny day, right? Then finally, the last portion we'll cover is a standard form. So whenever you're reading an argument and you're thinking critically, you might want to break it down into the standard form. That is, all your premises up top, a line, then your conclusion. In this next part, I'm going to go through some arguments. I'm going to have my lovely assistant read off some premises and conclusions, and I will try to sort out for you what goes where in the standard form. Hey there. So now we're on to the challenge portion of this lecture. My lovely assistant is going to read off some premises and conclusions for me, and I will try in real time to determine premise versus conclusion. Now, the reason we're doing this is because when you're reading an article or reading a journal or reading a paper, right, the person you're reading might not make it so clear what their conclusion is. Their conclusion might be mixed up in the middle, or their conclusion might be the very first thing you read, right? So we're doing this that way you can kind of see the process of figuring out conclusion versus premise.
Okay. Olivia is a cat.
Olivia is a cat. That sounds like a premise.
Therefore, Olivia is gorgeous.
I heard therefore, so that sounds like a conclusion. So Olivia is gorgeous.
All cats are gorgeous.
All cats are gorgeous. Okay. So I've got premise one, premise two, conclusion. Now in the standard form, you might also see it as without the P, you might just see three little dots. Three little dots mean therefore. So let me wipe this board off and we'll try another one. All right, lay it on me.
Every U.S. president lives in the White House.
Okay, that sounds like a premise. Every president in White House.
Therefore, Laura Bush is a U.S. president.
I heard therefore, so this must be a conclusion. This is a throwback. The Bush era was back from 2000 to 2008, so, you know.
Laura Bush lives in the White House.
Laura Bush in the White House. So this has the valid form of an argument. Every president lives in the White House. Laura Bush is in the White House. Therefore, Laura Bush is president. So it's valid, right? It's got the proper structure, but it's not sound. This is nonsense. Laura Bush was never president. Her husband, George Bush, was president, but she herself was never president. So you might encounter this when you're doing research as well. You might have someone that presents a really good sounding argument, but it's not true. So you got to keep your eyes out for that. All right. Let me wipe this off and we'll do the next one. All right, lay it on me.
Okay. All men are mortal.
All men are mortal. Okay. I think I've heard this one before, but let's see. Are mortal?
Therefore, Socrates is a man.
Okay. Therefore, Socrates is a man?
Yes.
Okay. Socrates is a man. That must be our conclusion.
Socrates is mortal.
Socrates is mortal. So here we have one that's valid and sound, but there's something kind of funky with it, right? All men are mortal. Yes, so far I've not met any immortal men. Socrates was also mortal. He's not still walking around kicking. And Socrates is a man. Also true. These are three true things, but yet if you saw this in a paper, you'd think something was funky, right? You'd think something was off. And the reason is that these premises aren't giving valid justification. It does not follow, from these two things to this thing, right? We're missing a critical piece. We're missing a connecting piece in here somewhere. So let's erase this one. Let's do one more for good luck. All right.
Okay. Every Major League Baseball team has at least 9 players.
Every Major League Baseball team has 9 players. Okay. So that must be a premise. Team has 9 players. All right.
The Milwaukee Brewers are a Major League Baseball team.
Okay. The Brewers are an MLB team. Let me put P1, P2, because we got on 2 lines, so I'll separate this out. What's our last one?
Therefore, the Milwaukee Brewers have at least 9 players.
The Brewers have 9 players. So we got this one figured out. Premise, premise, conclusion. I've actually heard another version of this that was related to the apostles. It was every MLB team has 9 players. There were 9 apostles, therefore the apostles were an MLB team. A little bit of a funny one just to confuse people. So I hope that this demonstration of finding premises and conclusions has been helpful to you. Thank you so much for staying to the video to the end, and I hope you have good luck in your studies. Thank you.